The beginning of this week's Dvar For Bo sees Moshe and Aharon once again demand that Paro send Israel for a 3-day journey to worship God in the desert. If Paro refuses, the consequences will be devastating, as a massive plague of locusts will come and cover Egypt, eating all vegetation. For the first time since the plague started, Paro's advisors advised him to let Israel do what Moshe and Aaron asked, otherwise Egypt will be done for. Following their advice, Paro returns Moshe and Aaron to the palace and innocently asks them who will be going on this 3-day journey. Moshe answers, everyone and everything, men, women, and children, young and old, and even the livestock too. Paro answers and says that only the men can go, and then proceeds to throw them out, thereby letting the plague of locusts proceed as warned. What exactly happened that caused Paro to have a change of heart and ignore his advisor's advice? Many commentators hold that Paro's advisors counseled him to let the nation out to worship God just as Moshe demanded. Paro didn't fully accept this advice and sought to limit who could go, as to him it looked like a ploy for Israel to flee from Egypt. As such, Paro reasoned that only the men could go. How did Paro come to this conclusion? Perhaps Paro had a case of selective memory. According to royal records, the last time Israel left Egypt, which was for Yaakov's funeral, they left their children and livestock behind, while everyone else went up to Canaan. Since there was a precedent for leaving part of the nation behind, Paro intended to make sure that that would happen again. Bechor Shor offers a couple of interesting answers. Bechor Shor's first answer is that Moshe had told Paro that the worship of God will be animal offerings. Paro reasoned that only men bring animal offerings. Since the women and children would be unnecessary for the worship, Moshe must only need the men in order to worship God. Bechor Shor's second answer is that Paro thought that Moshe was trying to bargain with him. When bargaining, one does not offer the desired price right away, but opens with an exaggerated offer. As such, Paro thought that when Moshe asked for everyone and everything to go, that was only the opening offer. But Moshe really wanted only the men. And Paro told him such, and then refused to let anyone go until he thought that Moshe came to his senses and agreed for only the men to go. Alternatively, some commentators such as Chizkuni and Abarbanel observed that Paro's advisors had advised Paro, Shalach et ha'anashim. Who are these anashim? The word anashim can be used generically to mean people, which is the usual understanding as we saw before. However, Paro's advisors here were very specific. They could have said, Shalach et ha'am, send the nation when they gave their advice. But they specifically said, Shalach et ha'anashim. It must therefore mean that Paro's advisors were advising him to send the men to do as Moshe demanded, and no one else. This meant that it wasn't Paro alone who had decided that only the men would be allowed to go, but it was Paro and his cabinet together who decided that only the men will be allowed to go worship God. What about the women and children? Why couldn't they go? Paro and his advisors together decided that the women and children were to be held hostage to ensure the men's return to Egypt. This explanation shows that it wasn't just Paro who had enslaved Israel, but Egypt as a whole. Either way, Paro and Egypt tried to dictate the terms to Israel. What they didn't realize is that by insisting to dictate the terms to Israel, they were in essence dictating their own downfall. Those that bless shall be blessed, while those that curse shall be cursed. Shabbat Shalom.